Good evening. Good evening. Hello. Hi. Hi. I'm Dr. Gail Randall, and I'm the author of Soul Doctoring, Heal Yourself, Heal the Planet, which is now available on pre-sales on Amazon. And since March 3rd, we've sold over 1,000 books, almost 1,500, which is thank you so much. Believe in it, you'll enjoy it, you'll love it, it's going to help you, it's going to help your family, and it's going to help the planet. Also, I'm the co-host and author of Soul Stories podcast, which we did just edited our second new video podcast format today, which is amazing. So it's not only audio like it was before and underscored like a movie, but with video. So it's beautiful. Check that out too, coming up. The one we just did today was Meg Hepner. She is just amazing, and she's I like to think of her as a pocket full of pearls. As a matter of fact, today I'm going to talk about a pocket full of pearls. So see this? Can you see this? Maybe you can't see this. So I have a pearl here. See that pearl? I'm going to put it in here. And that's what you're going to get from my talk today. Nothing better than simplicity and perfection. That's what we're talking about with pearls. But we are going to talk about compassion and empathy as advertised. And like I said, a pocket full of pearls. You know, what are the challenges to the unfolding soul? And how can we meet those challenges, you know, to live our life in the best way possible? So I'd like to talk about some of those things. There was a quote that I'd like to share with you. And it was by, of all people, by Morgan Freeman. And he said, "The God in me is the best part of me. The God in me is who I strive to be. The God in me is the best version of me." So I like to try to live by that and try to be the best version of me. And I would encourage you all to do the same kind of thing, because the best version of you, it, you know, connects with that God in you. We all have a little piece of God in me. I had an Ayurvedic teacher, and he taught me the meaning of namaste. Namaste is the God in me honors the God in you. And I know things are not always perfect between us. We're humans, and we have disagreements and things where we don't maybe quite meet eye to eye, but that doesn't mean we can't get along. I had a situation with someone today, and we're constantly kind of butting heads with each other, but that just kind of tells me she's a strong lady, I'm a strong lady, and it doesn't have to end poorly. It doesn't have to. I feel compassion for her. I feel empathy for her. But I also feel, which is really important, and something I like to teach my patients, is to feel compassion for yourself. If you're not feeling compassion for yourself, you're not really doing it right, because that inward flow of compassion is what allows you to be, you know, the strong, heartfelt person that you can be. Because if you're, I'll give people an example. Okay, so if your best friend came to you and they did something that you thought or they knew was wrong, and they wanted to like confess to you. So they confessed to you and wanted you to help them feel better. So on a 1 to 4 scale, how likely are you to try to make them feel better? 4 being the most compassionate, and 0 being the least compassionate. What are you going to give your best friend? No answers? I would say probably a 4. So when it comes to yourself, if you had done that same thing, how compassionate would you be with yourself? And what I usually find with my patients and people and followers and students is they're more on the lower end for themselves. Now, why would that be? I try to teach people to be their own best friend. And the way you can do that is be compassionate with yourself. Right? So be your own best friend, be compassionate with yourself. Give yourself a 4 too. A 4, not a 4 number 2, but a 4 also. And that will lift you out of any guilt. Guilt is really not helpful. Any bad feelings, and you could even do the forgiveness prayer if you feel like you did something bad, if it was towards a person. So, I forgive you, you forgive me. We forgive each other completely and totally, now and forever. Thank you, God, amen. Thank you, God, amen. Thank you, God, amen. And that's extracted right out of Howard Will's prayers, transformational prayers. He has a much longer version. But whenever I feel like, geez, maybe I offended someone, even if it's not my fault per se, it is important for me to forgive that person. And for that person to forgive, for us to forgive each other. So it's a reciprocal thing, so the energy is cleared. I forgive you. You forgive me. We forgive each other. Now and forever. Let all people forgive us. Let us forgive all people. Let us forgive all of the ancestors, mates, friends, and lovers of those that may not forgive us, and let us forgive them. Let all the ancestors, lovers, and mates forgive us, and let us forgive them completely and totally, now and forever. Thank you, God, amen. Thank you, God, amen. Thank you, God, amen. Whew. That feels pretty good, doesn't it? Okay. You know, one of the other challenges to the unfolding soul are wounds. You know, we all suffer wounds in our childhood. You know, we may not have had, where we weren't beaten, we weren't withheld food or clothing or shelter, or nothing like that serious. But somehow, some way, we all come away from childhood with certain wounds. And it's those wounds that shape our behavior. So if we're shaping our behavior around these things that happen to us in childhood, we really need to look at those things, because what we do is we take like a big fluffy coat and we cover them so that no one can touch us there. Because those wounds that we sustained during childhood hurt. So maybe we, like I'm treating a young boy now, and he was called out of bed frequently by his father to sit in front of him, and his father would say, you know, whatever he was unhappy with him about, and that he was going to break all his bones and enjoy every one of them. And that stays with that kid now to this day. We're working with that to clear that it's not happening now, that it's not really part of him, the child, that it's something from before, and he can let it go. It's like a thought virus or a body virus, if you will. I had something similar. My father used to call me into his den, and he would have me sit opposite him, and he would tell me what he was unhappy about, and he would try to make me about this big, which is funny because, well, it's not really funny, haha, it's funny weird, because he was like 6'8" and a genius and brilliant. And of course he could reduce my argument to this big compared to his mind and thinking. But the way that I handled it at the time, some people would call disassociation, but I made him this big. You know, I didn't realize, well, I guess I did somehow realize that's what he was doing to me, but how I dealt with it was actually visually shrink him to like about 1 inch tall. And his big booming Gregory Peck voice I could hardly hear from across the room. So, and then after that, I dealt with it by what I said, you know, realizing this was not really coming from me, that this was coming from him, and it was his weakness, and, you know, that I felt compassion for him, that he would need to be up on a little kid, so to speak, to feel better about himself. And through that compassion, as you may or may not know, every time we give compassion to another, because we are here to serve other souls. That's why we're all here. And that's been studied, and it raises our T cells. It raises our immune cells. It raises our beneficial neurotransmitters when we perform random acts of kindness for another person. Or not so random acts of kindness, you know, when we are compassionate for another person. Like my recent stay in the hospital, when I described to you, I actually developed compassion for these people that were so unkind to me, because they really weren't intending to be unkind, but they were, and they hurt me, you know, because I realized they were suffering too. You know, they were working in a COVID overloaded hospital, and their workforce was 50% down, and they were just very pressured, you know, and they have to wear these hazmat suits wherever they go, and it's pretty horrendous. So by giving compassion to them, I believe it helped make my outcome better. Helped my immunity. So we all have these wounds. So what do we do with these wounds? Well, instead of covering them up and developing these very complex behavior mechanisms so that nobody can touch us there, and, you know, that those behavior mechanisms don't really even belong to us. They belong to whatever that was in an early part of our life. If we can open that jacket and allow the light to shine in on those wounds, shining the light or the love or the compassion, if you will, or the empathy on those wounds is what heals them. And when we can heal those wounds, we're more whole, and we can let go of those behavior mechanisms and thought viruses that don't belong to us, and develop and evolve in a more beneficial way, not only for ourselves, but for everybody. But you have to be able to choose non-poisonous thoughts over poisonous thoughts. So instead of, oh, that blah, 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 she did this to me, and she did that to me, and I did this, and she did that, let go. Think of the good things that transpired between you. Think of the presents that she gave you. Think of the good things that she shared with you. Same thing, goes both ways. And let those negative, hateful thoughts go. They don't serve anything. It's the awareness of the truth, I say. It's the awareness of the truth that can set you free. How's that possible? Because it gives you choices. It gives you choices. Like when I was lying in that hospital bed and I was tied down, I mean, not literally, but essentially had tubes in every arm and literally bleeding and seeping and from everywhere. What could I do? What was my choice? They were giving me these very toxic drugs and antibiotics, which it turns out I didn't really need at all, which poisoned my kidneys and almost put me into dialysis. So instead of like freaking out and like, oh my God, I'm gonna die, and this is the end, and how can they do this to me? The secret is to try to stay as calm as possible. I know that's easy to say, but try to focus. And what the focus is really about is survival in a way, but it really results in resilience. I gave a talk on this not too many times ago, but if you can stay flexible like my Oriental teachers taught me, like the bamboo, or like Joseph Randall taught me, like the trees in the wind that make the sound, elo, elo, elo. That's what gets you out of a stuck situation. So if you can remain flexible and think of options. What are my options? What is my action plan here? So here I am, lying in bed. My kidneys are failing, and I'm having to accept this treatment, which I'm beginning to realize is wrong. And I began to make a plan. First, I'm going to stop taking their medicine. That's number one. So I'm going to stop damaging myself. Second, I began to run through, luckily I'm a healer doctor extraordinaire, things, what can save my kidneys? What can bring my kidneys back? And what was or is this inflammation in my foot? Well, I know numerous treatments for inflammation, because that's pretty much what I do on a daily basis, is fight inflammation, because inflammation is the basic cause of all chronic disease that we have right now on the planet. Chronic disease. Here in this country, it's mostly the food, can be trauma, can be stress, can be a lot of those things, but in other countries, it's more trauma, stress. So what we try to do is remove the root causes of those inflammations and give the healing herbs that can do something about that, right? Turmeric, probably. Intense green vegetables, things like that. So the awareness of the truth can set you free, because it gives you choices. And if you're not a doctor like me and you can't think up those things, you can find someone like me that can help you. A functional medicine doctor, a Chinese doctor, Japanese traditional doctor. There are many, many kinds of practitioners and doctors that know these things and can add to what you need. So don't ever think that your back's up against a wall to where you can't get out, because that's never the case. You got to be a can-do person. I can do this. And the more things you think of that you can do, the more you can do. And it really helps. It really, really helps. So another way to approach these things is develop your spiritual body. If you haven't spent much time developing your spiritual body, it's never too late. We're all our mental bodies, that's the East, our heart, which is the emotions, our physical bodies, which is the West, and then the North, which is our spiritual body. My early studies luckily with American Indians, they taught me that. They taught me balance. They taught me about the directions of the medicine wheel and the meanings and how that brings balance to healing. And that was one of the most valuable teachings I ever received, because by the time I went to actually to my training in internal medicine, I already knew that. And where most of my colleagues started drifting away from what they once entered medicine for, to help other people for compassionate, empathetic reasons, they began to think of people as their diseases. Like the gallbladder in room 3 and the interesting case in room 6. And, you know, and I had a patient that, when I was an intern, that had inadvertently was given by his neighbor some kind of very toxic Jamaican bush tea, which was destroying his liver, and there wasn't a lot that anybody could do about it. We didn't have IV glutathione in those days, and I wished we did. But the bottom line of that is, what could he do? The only thing he could do at that point would be come to grips with what was happening with him. But I guess, you know, the point here is you have to understand the challenges that are being given to your soul, because they're being given to you for a reason, for the most part. And that's for you to learn and grow and evolve from. They're not being given to you to torture you or make your suffering greater here. But your job is to figure it out. You know, what is the gift in the illness? I write about it in my book, that there's a gift in every illness. And even in the thing that happened to me with my foot and the non-infection and almost losing my kidney function, and then getting C. difficile colitis, which is one of the worst things that can happen. Luckily, I'm a gut doctor. I could get over that. But was that I learned, I already knew a lot about all of those things, but I learned even more about how to stay focused and flexible. Flexible is the operative secret word in resilience. You know, if you think back to the concentration camps, how did those people survive? You know, they had no food, they had no hope, they had, you know, nothing. And the guy that wrote the book, I'm blanking on his name now, about that, and he noted that as soon as their hope went, they would die within minutes. As long as they had hope, they stayed alive. There's one story that goes, someone got a hold of some lipstick in the camp, and then the women started wearing the lipstick, and everybody got so energetic and so happy, as if they'd feasted for days. And then pretty soon the guys, too, were wearing the lipstick. It just gave them life. It gave them something that was theirs. So that's a little pearl there. You know, find something that's yours that can give you life. And it will. It will give you life. So there's another quote here I wanted to talk to you about spiritual energy. Frank Foolscrow is touted to be one of the greatest medicine men, Lakota medicine man ever. And he said this about spirituality. Sometimes it feels like energy or electricity when it is moving in and through us, but the spiritual power is a distinctive kind of knowledge that is like the key that opens the door, or the switch that starts the energy moving. It is that special insight that we all need to break up that log jam of information. Other people have gathered up the same amount of information, perhaps, but they can't get it moving because they don't have that key. They don't have that spiritual key. So they go nowhere because they've not called in the power and they have not been given the spiritual key to switch it on. So I think that's pretty cool. And I thank those people for teaching me that. Another type of relationship presents challenges to our growing, unfolding soul is the relationship, we already talked about the relationship with other people, but ourselves. When we fear we are not enough, that's a biggie. That's a biggie. We think we're not enough. Please don't ever think you're not enough. Not only are you not enough, you're more. You're more than you ever thought you were. We all are. And if we are satisfied with our authentic, essential selves, there's no reason to feel jealous or envious. There's really nothing that can stop us. As long as our intentions are pure and our awareness is good and our focus is clear, it feels so good, really, to come from that place. When we're balanced and when we see ourselves as authentic, we are beautiful. And other people will tell you, oh my God, you're so beautiful. But really what they're seeing is your spirit energy shining through. So I always like to share that. It's the fear and constriction of the soul that can result from judgment of others. So what do you do about judgment of others? I mean, judgment of yourself is the worst thing. When you judge yourself and you say, oh, that was bad, I was bad, whatever, you've got to give yourself a break. Everybody's human. We all make mistakes. I forgive you, you forgive me, we forgive each other completely and totally. Don't judge. Just see the truth. See the truth of what occurred, and instead of judging, make a decision. I'm not going to go there again. I'm going to do better. I'm going to do my best. And always try to do your best. And don't judge others either, because you don't know. You're not in their shoes. And don't ever say, oh, I wish I was in that person's shoes, because you don't know what you're trading out. Judgment is not a good thing. And some people are very judgmental. They see, so that person this, and they think this, and they think that. You don't know what people think. So be more open and try to remember what you think and get into your authenticity. Like you could be in the grocery store and somebody will come up to you and go, you're an asshole. I mean, it happens, right? Or get out of the way, or, something nasty. And it depends what the really important cross point is what you decide to do, or what you decide to think about that. You're going to buy it? Oh, yeah, he's right, I am an asshole. No, come on. No, you're not going to buy it. And you're not going to get into it. You're not going to take it personally. You're not going to take it personally. And if you don't take that judgment personally, it can't hurt you. Who knows? Maybe that guy has a hemorrhoid or a sore toe or something that will really get you. So, yeah, just walk away. It's not important. Your choice will make all the difference. Don't internalize that kind of behavior. It'll only bring you down. You want to internalize positive, good behavior and language. And if someone can't give that to you, then they don't belong in your sphere of existence. I had to let go of a friend recently, and I tried my hardest, but she was mean. She was really mean, and she would say really mean things and criticize me. And, finally I just said, look, I can't really do this anymore. I'm sorry. It doesn't make me feel good about myself or you, and I don't deserve it. So I choose not to have you in my life anymore. Yeah, it's a hard thing to do, but sometimes you got to do it. That's the most compassionate thing I could do for myself. Compassion is sometimes, it's not always like empathy. Empathy is all understanding, like all giving, all, positive. Empathy is all understanding, all giving, all positive, where compassion is sometimes quite ruthless. It's about the truth. If you don't include the truth in compassion, you're not really being truly compassionate. You want to tell the truth to yourself, to your best friends. So you tell them in a nice way, but you tell them. Well, if it were me in this situation, and I don't know everything, but maybe you might want to look at it like this. If you see something where that person's kind of heading for the wall or the cliff or something. So that's true compassion, is telling them the truth. We have choices about how we react to a situation. We may not be able to control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond to it. And you probably heard that before, but you should hear it again because that's really important. So there's another thing I want to share with you, another pearl, a little pearl in here, and that is about ego. Ego, the word ego, gets a bad rap. Oh, that guy is egotistic. So, is that a bad thing or a good thing? I don't know. I mean, listen, if truly in the definition of ego, you have to have an ego to get across the street safely downtown so you don't get hit by a bus. So ego is not a bad thing. It's when your ego is kind of bigger than you are. So you allow your ego to make decisions outside of the realm of where your authenticity may be. That's when ego becomes a problem. Or the even worse problem, I tell my students, it's just as arrogant to think you're more than you are, having this very large ego, as it is to think you're less than you are. So when you're at a party and the guy walks in and takes over the room and starts saying, pushing people around and stuff like that, that's ego. But also when the guy comes in and goes and sits in the corner and doesn't say a word, that's egotistic also. So you need to try to find that balance of ego. Yeah, I agree with you, Patty. Sometimes social media can be so mean. I've had that. I get it. But I don't take it personally. I try to meet them where they are, if I can. And I try to, kind of equalize the energy. And kind of point out where, it doesn't always work, but it's worth a try. If you get one person in 10, that's a fruitful effort. So that kind kind of brings us into the greater philosophical thoughts, I guess, about consciousness. You know, what is consciousness? Well, I mean, you know, just conscious, unconscious. Consciousness means more being awake, aware. Unconscious would be not being awake or aware, or just on a physical basis. But we use it in a much higher way now, and I mean, I do, you know, and because I talk about things like collective consciousness, and which could be also cosmic consciousness, which could also be God or godlike. When we talked about in the beginning, when I gave you Morgan Freeman's quote about the best part of me is the God in me. I think that's consciousness. And whether we do or not, I mean, I think striving for consciousness is a very noble thing, and it's a very evolving force in our lives. So what I feel is, you know, because my whole book talks about self-healing, and first talks about my journey and talks about self-healing, and then it talks about different ways that we can help on a greater level, help our planet, help the energy on our planet. And one of the ways we can help the energy is come together in that place of consciousness. You know, whatever your word is for. I mean, it could be, you know, a different word, because depending on your religious following, it doesn't really matter the word so much. It's more about the energy and the collective nature of cosmic consciousness or collective consciousness, or coming together in that God space. Because the more of us that can come together in that God space, the more powerful we are. You know, sometimes we think, well, we're alone out here, you know. Well, actually, you're not. We're all in this together. And I say this all the time, and my patients know. It doesn't matter what color we are. You're riding in the same band with people of all colors. White people, yellow people, red people, black people. You're all riding together in the same force, if you will. It doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter what sex you are. It doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter what country you live in. It doesn't matter any of those details, whether you're gay, lesbian, queer, or in-between thing, transsexual. It doesn't matter. We're all humans. That's the thing. We're all humans. And as humans, we can come together on that factor. We're all part of humanity. If we're humans, we're part of humanity. Being part of humanity means we're responsible for the planet. In the beginning, we made an agreement that we would be the guardians of this planet, that humanity would be the guardians of this planet. So we need to live up to that agreement. And then we're going to be there. We're going to be in godlike consciousness together. And even just that, if we're all pointing our sacred arrow in that direction, it's going to change the world. And there are a lot of other things we can do, which I get specific about in the book, but just that. You know, because some people say, well, I can't go out there and pick up stuff off the beach, and I can't do this, and I can't do that. No, but you can do this. You can recognize that we're all part of humanity. And you can recognize that one humanity, one planet. And that'll change the energy of the planet. Just that. And they've measured this. It's not a woo-woo thing. Sounds woo-woo, but it's really not. I mean, they've measured it. They've measured the energy on the planet, for instance, during acts of great emotion, even during the Super Bowl, but like, say, Christmas, or when big things happen on the planet, the electromagnetics change in a beneficial way. When bad things happen on the planet, same thing, the other way. So you do make a difference. Don't think you don't make a difference. Don't think any one of you is inconsequential, because you're not. Each and every one of us is consequential. So the more of us that can come together and realize that as a one, as a humanity, we're stronger than we are alone. It's like all the colors in the pack, when you put them together, are stronger than one color. Colors break pretty easy, you know, those colors that get snap. Put them all together and try to break them. Anyway, so, yeah. It's about togetherness, people. And it's about spirituality. It's about spirit. It's honoring the God in you, and you honoring the God in me. We're all in this together. She goes, what is she reading? Well, I'm kind of folding through one of the chapters in my book, which is really good, by the way. It was a combination of a couple of chapters. I started with the compassion chapter, the consequence of compassion, but I merged it with the challenges to the unfolding soul, and it turned out a lot better. You're going to enjoy this. But there's a lot of stories in here that I'm not going to tell you people's stories. You have to read the book for that. So, there's just one thing I want to settle on, end on, I guess, or, of course, knowing me, I probably won't end. But if you have, it's hard when you have something wrong with you to get yourself to a place where you can see the way out. I just described what happened to me when I did that. And the thing is, I, of course, trust myself, so that helped me, but a lot of people, most people don't have that. So you want to look for somebody that you trust, that you can lean on during the time of that dis-ease, if you will. So, and then find someone that can guide you. So you want somebody for your physical body, that's the West. You want somebody for your mental body, that could be any number of people. That could be a healer, that could be a friend, that could be a therapist. You want someone for your spiritual body. That would be a healer, that would be, could be a hands-on healer, could be someone like Howard Wills in Kauai. And then you also want someone for your heart, for your emotional body, to stabilize your emotions during those times of stress. Again, it could be a therapist, it could be a friend, it could be a healer. But above and all, you need someone or a group of people that you can trust. Because healing begins with trust. And that person, and that was the name of this talk, will give you empathy. Complete empathy. If you want to make someone else happy, give them empathy. I understand. Yes, I can see where you'd feel that way. Yes, I totally get it. That's empathy. And if you want to make yourself happy, give them compassion. It's again, I understand, but it's also, I totally get it, but it's also bigger than that. I'm going to tell you the truth. And sometimes when I have patients that have pretty bad diseases like cancer or whatnot, I build the trust. We start with empathy. That's the number one thing. Actually, I have a post on my Instagram right now where Bob Yelling is discussing my book and said the difference between your book about healing and many other healers' books is you start with empathy, where most people end up with it, or if they ever get there at all. That was his quote. But thank you, Bob. So I agree with it. It is where we need to start, but then we need to end with it too, and end with compassion. And what that brings about in the person, patient, friend, whoever it is that needs the healing, is trust. And in the direction of the south, which is the heart, it's trust, love, and growth, or evolution. And that gets you to the middle of the medicine wheel, which is where you meet God and you can begin your healing. So that's how the energy works, in part. There's much more to it, but that's my pocket of pearls for this evening. Does anybody have any questions or want to add something? Oh my God, we almost used all the time. It's 6:47, and I'm opening it up for questions or comments or just hellos. Thank you all for coming. I can't believe we only have a few people here after the end of Now It's More. Anyway, it was a great talk. You can always listen to it later. Hi, Annie. Nice to see you here. It was a great show. It felt good to me, and I think that you'll enjoy listening to it again later on as well. Don't forget to DM me. I love questions. And like I said, don't forget to look for my book on Amazon.com. It's available right now. And like I said, we've sold over 1,000 books since March 3rd. Oh my goodness, I'm just so thrilled. I have a brand new YouTube channel. You got to check that out. I have a new website. I have a brand new podcast format where it's video and scored like a movie. So much stuff going on at Randall Wellness. Stay tuned because there's going to be more. Love you guys. I'm just here to help. Randall Wellness Network, bringing wellness to you now. Love you. Love you guys. See you next week. Bye now.